We're turning to this. The liberal media appears determined to vilify white rural Americans in what appears to be an effort to take down former President Trump, just one of many. So brace yourself for this recent clip where the guests claim that white rural voters are a threat to democracy. And that was the nicest thing that they said. Watch.
Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
Whoa, that's a broad brush.
Golly, I wish I had like half an hour to go down the whole chapter.
You can have all of my time.
I'm serious. I mean, beginning with, this whole new narrative that Trump wants to be a dictator, while President Biden ignores completely what the Supreme Court said about student loans, right? All the denialism. Let me tell you something. So I got to be honest. I grew up as an Army brat first half of my childhood, and then I lived in New York. I've lived all over this country. I was in the military myself, and I by far have faced far more racism in New York City than anywhere else. I've lived in Alabama. I've lived in North Carolina. I've lived in Virginia. I lived in North Dakota. And the greatest threat to, at least to people being able to achieve things, particularly black people, in my mind, the people who think they're superior aren't people driving around the caricature of a person with a stars and bars bumper sticker and an old pickup truck. It's people in these buildings in Manhattan in the top floors who don't think black people are smart. They don't hire them. Now, they will cut a check to the Fresh Air Fund, and a lot of them voted for Obama. But in their hearts of hearts, they are the ones who feel superior. They are the ones who don't think we've got it. By the way, real quick, as far as the threat to democracy, years ago, Richard Pryor had this one thing. He said, what were the Japanese thinking about when they bombed Pearl Harbor? He says, well, apparently they all went to school in California, right? He said, well, we bombed Pearl Harbor and they'll give up. He said, they never been to Alabama. He said, you heard about Pearl Harbor? Mm-hmm. We're going to have to clean their clock. So if anyone has ever saved this country, it's been the folks in rural America. The bottom line, though, is just it's a caricature. It's something they push because fear is the only thing they've got left to try to hold black people back. Remember what Biden said, they're going to put you all in chains. I'll never forget that. It was despicable.
One of the many things he said.
Yeah, one of the many.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something specific with you because the drivel from this individual is so patently offensive from so many reasons, but he says the disproportionate power that rural voters hold, he says. And the title of the trash book that he's peddling is White Rural Rage. But he says that constitutes the threat to democracy. So again, if you are white and rural, you are a threat to democracy by virtue of your existence, and you have a disproportionate voter power.
I just took a lot of time, but let me just say, this combines two things that the Democrats have been trying to do, and we're seeing it in real life. We've got a three-tier power system, right, in our balances. They want to get rid of the Supreme Court or diminish its power, and also get rid of Congress. That's what he's talking about, overrepresentation. Like, in Senate, you've got these small states and they have 2 senators.
Yes.
And so why would Wyoming have 2 senators and New York State have 2 senators? They want to rip up the Constitution.
That's right.
And what it's established in this country.
And I grew up in California, so people say that all the time, mockingly, but they mean it.
Well, and what does democracy even mean in this context, right? Like, we're a constitutional republic. We believe in democratic principles. That means people it's we the people, right? And they invoke the Christian nationalism thing, which everyone, I'm sure, saw the reporter from a different network who said, these people believe that their rights were given to them by God. Well, yes, because we've read foundational documents. We've read the Declaration of Independence. We understand what this country was founded on, our our traditions and our values. And we do think that our rights were given to us by God in heaven. We have a Judeo-Christian philosophy. So this is the clinging to their Bibles and their guns redux. This is the their deplorables, basket of deplorables redux. The left trots this out whenever there's an election season and says, oh, they're threatening our democracy. Have they ever come to really think that maybe this is democracy in action?
Those two authors, they better get all of their meat from the cow in their own yard. They better make their own clothes right in their yard. They better have everything that goes into their body and that contributes to their lives right from that big metropolitan city they live on, because the rural voters are the ones that are the backbone of this country and provide for 99.999% of Americans everything that they consume and enjoy. And I venture both of those two.
I love that you said that. I've spoken to a lot of beef and cattlemen over the years during my time at the campaign, and they are some of the kindest, most humble, most caring, bedrock of the country type people. And now they're being summarily described as white rural rage. But my head went exactly where yours did, Kara. The left comes up with these terms: white rural rage. Paul Krugman in the pages of the New York Times, the mystery of white rural rage. Christian nationalism. These terms sound great when you're sipping coffee in academia in the ivory tower. They make no sense. They are deeply, deeply offensive to anyone who loves this country. White rural rage is the new one.
Yeah, you know, I just look at something that one of my guests last hour said. T.W. Shannon used to be the House Speaker in Oklahoma's legislature, and he had some pretty harsh words for the far left, particularly to Rashida Tlaib. That if you really want to go down a road of racism, who's been censured for anti-Semitic comments more?
Right.
Like, let's just take a look at what's just happened in the last few months since the war with Israel and Hamas, after Hamas invaded and beheaded and tortured and did everything they did along the border in Gaza. So let's look at how that started and where we are now, and who's really piping up with a lot of anti-Semitic and racist comments. I mean, look at the bastions of, and I know you went to Harvard, you only made the place better.
Oh, thank you.
You need to go back and lecture them. But their leadership, who they left in place until the nation got to see just how racist they are, and leadership, some of the leadership on our most valued Ivy League campuses. Now, I say valued because they're expensive. I don't mean value. I should say valuation shows, right? Because of how much it costs to go there. But it is interesting that this comes up and the finger pointing comes up, but there are no mirror moments where someone says, yeah, but I went to this school and I believe that the president didn't need to protect Jews on campus a few weeks ago either. I mean, can we just be honest about where we are? And by the way, can we look at the color that really counts for everybody, and that is green? Some people in this nation can't afford food right now.
Yes, that's exactly right.
It's not about justice, it's not about agenda, it's not about mobilizing people, it's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.